Cody Rhodes has become one of the most popular wrestlers in the WWE, and he seems ready to be the champion. But in reality, his quest to touch the stars is the dream of a lifetime. Over a period of about 20 years, the son of the great Dusty Rhodes had an incredible journey, where he sometimes was a golden boy of the business with a destiny all mapped out, sometimes a second fiddle, condemned to live in the shadow of his legendary father. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise for this series where we'll dive together into the story of the American Nightmare, the one who, in the WWE, went from undesirable to undeniable. You will discover, among other things, how Cody tried his luck in Hollywood, how his father had money problems to a point that electricity was shut down in their house, and how Cody's speech at the 2007 Hall of Fame hurt his career. But also what Xavier Woods planned to do when their paths crossed when they were still in high school, why Dusty Rhodes got arrested while they were eating waffles together, and even how Cody once ended up bleeding in a strip club. And you will never guess what Randy Orton was doing when Cody saw him for the first time, or the hilarious prank that Triple H and Shawn Michaels did to him at a show in Ireland. You are on the Wrestling Paradise. Cody Rhodes, the prodigal son's quest to touch the stars, Episode 1. Let's go! Wrestling has more than one royal family. The McMahon family, the pioneers of the WWE with Vince, Shane, Stephanie and even Triple H, and the Anoa'i family, perhaps the most prolific in terms of superstars since it has The Rock, Rikishi, Umaga, the Usos, and of course the tribal chief Roman Reigns, immediately come to mind when we think of these dynasties that are deeply rooted in this business. But another family still made an impact in the industry, the Rhodes family. It has the American dream, the son of a plumber, the common man, Dusty Rhodes. In addition to being one of the most popular wrestlers of the 80s, his impact has been tremendous in pro wrestling. As a booker at WCW, but also as a mentor at NXT, since his folds include Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, and even a certain Roman Reigns. In this family, we also have Dusty's son, Dustin Rhodes, who we know more as Goldust, an eccentric character who we have often seen in the WWE for more than 20 years. But there is also his youngest son, the winner of the 2023 and 2024 Royal Rumble, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. From an early age, Cody Rhodes' fate seems to be all mapped out. Born on June 13th, 1985 in Marietta in the state of Georgia, he's lucky to have a half-brother, Dustin, and two uncles, Jerry Sags and Typhoon, who are already wrestlers, but especially a father who made an impact on generations of fans, Dusty Rhodes. To understand the importance of the latter in this industry, we can mention what Jim Cornette, a pro wrestling expert, says about the American dream. He has not only captivated thousands of fans in his legendary rivalry with Ric Flair, but the American dream has also impacted the careers of many other wrestlers through those he has helped to improve and the incredible concepts he has created. What concepts was Cornette referring to? Well, Dusty Rhodes is the man who created the War Games, the Great American Bash, the stipulations of the Texas Bull Rope and the Barbed Wire match, and who, as if that wasn't enough, created the casket match, which would later become The Undertaker's favorite stipulation. Dusty also participated in the first casket match in history in 1980 against Ivan Koloff. He is also the author of the famous promo Hard Times, in which he presents himself as a man of the people who knows the hard times that his fans can go through, and that is considered one of the best in history with Austin 316. An amazing resume, which will lead him to be logically inducted by his two sons in the WWE Hall of Fame on March 21st, 2007. Cody Rhodes' opponent at WrestleMania 39 and 40, Roman Reigns, of whom Dusty was a mentor at the time when he supervised talent at Florida Championship Wrestling and NXT, says about him, "He's critical early on as far as instilling confidence. He saw the man I would become, opposed to what I was looking at in the mirror." Little Cody, on the other hand, is bound to have no ordinary youth. His father is often on the road to do shows, and he doesn't see him as much as he would like to. But that won't stop him from knowing from an early age that it is in wrestling, a universe that fascinates him, that his destiny awaits him. He is mainly raised by his mother, Michelle Rubio, Dusty Rhodes' second wife, whom he married in 1978. Dusty already had 2 children with his first wife, including Dustin, to whom Cody was still very close. He says that his first wrestling memory is his father who took him to a ring at a WCW show when he barely knew how to walk. And when he was 4 years old, Dusty brought him in the ring at WrestleMania 6. In his childhood, he will be able to discover the backstage environment of shows, where he will see wrestlers full of admiration coming to hug his father, which will make him proud. Growing up and renting tapes of his matches, Cody will gradually understand that admiration, grasp more and more the subtleties of pro wrestling, and idolize Dusty. One night at the WCW show, he sees the American Dream in the ring having a chair broken on his head by his opponent Meng. And while he is sitting in the locker room later, he sees the ladder arrive, and at that moment he said to himself, "I'm gonna have to defend my dad. Even at this young age, I have to do something." But young Cody is going to be shocked when he sees Meng and Dusty shaking hands in front of him. His father then tells him, "Out there, it is different. Back here, we respect each other." One day, Dusty will even ask Steve Austin, a few years before he became Stone Cold, to babysit for him and to keep little Cody with him for about 15 minutes. It is also at that time that his father will introduce him to a tall and blonde guy by saying about him while he was still nobody, "He's gonna be a really big deal." Cody tells him, "Very nice to meet you, sir." It was Triple H, the one whose throne he will break in 2019. What is certain is that the American Nightmare has always been immersed in pro wrestling. And yet, Dusty at first rather wanted Cody to try his luck in Hollywood and become an actor, simply because he thought he was good looking. And his son even took this project very seriously, because he thought that his height and his body would not enable him to succeed in pro wrestling. He wasn't tall enough and not muscular enough. His strategy was then to become a famous actor and then force the WWF to recruit him. A clever strategy on Cody's part. And so, with his sister Tail, they went to try their luck in 2004 in Hollywood, at the Howard Fine Acting Studio, one of the most famous acting schools in Los Angeles. There, Cody took a course called Emotional Range, in which he had to draw on personal life experiences to manage to express several different emotions. You can imagine that this is something that he could use in wrestling later. Cody says that he loved this school and that it was cathartic for him, but that there were classes only 2-3 days a week. Apparently, with his sister, they didn't have much money, and he didn't really appreciate this environment in California. However, although he was depressed there, it was an experience that made him realize that he had to get into wrestling for good. He had then driven 48 hours to go and tell his father verbally that he wanted to enter the business. Besides, it was a global time when Dusty Rhodes had money problems. For example, in order to be able to give Cody and his sister $10,000 each to go to Hollywood, Dusty had pawned his Rolex watch, which made Cody feel sad when he found out about it, because he hoped to have it one day. Apparently, at the time when he was making a lot of money in wrestling in the 70s and 80s, his father was spending too much and couldn't pay his taxes, which followed him for years behind, to the point that the electricity was shut down at their house. And Dusty was doing commercials for car brands so that they wouldn't take his truck from him. He wanted to hide his problems from his children, but they realized it anyway. Nevertheless, Cody has great memories of his childhood and sees Dusty as the perfect father. For example, he drove him to school every morning. The American Dream himself confided that with Cody and his sister, he didn't want to make the same mistakes he did with Dustin years ago, for whom he had missed a lot of things by being away. Years later, about his attempt to get started in Hollywood, the American Nightmare will say that he thinks that his father regretted never having worked in cinema, and that in a way he wanted to live it through his son. In general, Dusty never encouraged Cody to follow the same path as him, but neither discouraged him. He especially wanted it to be his own decision. He even accompanied him to his football trainings when he did it. Besides, Dusty was worried about Cody too. At that moment, we're in the 90s, and with the beginnings of the Attitude Era, the old school wrestling, of which he had been a pioneer and which his son adored, seemed to disappear forever. But nothing stopped Cody in the pursuit of his dream of becoming a wrestler. Very young, he trains several times a day. He practices wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and will even win the Amateur Wrestling Championship of the state of Georgia 2 times in high school, with a total of 101 victories for only 2 losses. An impressive record that gives real legitimacy to Cody as a fighter. And for the record, at that time, the wrestler Xavier Woods, who we will later know as one of the members of the New Day team, was also wrestling in Georgia at another high school. And we could learn that his goal was to beat Cody in front of Dusty to impress him and make the legend want to take him under his wing in pro wrestling, which was his dream. But in the end, in the match that they finally had, Woods had failed to beat Cody. There was even a scene afterwards where Xavier saw a girl he liked at the bowling alley and who had left his high school. She then introduced him to her new friends, and among them there was Cody, who apparently was a little arrogant by saying that he knew him and that he had beaten this kid, before turning around and doing a strike. It's also worth noting that when Cody won the wrestling championships, according to his father, he apparently asked to be called Cody Rhodes, rather than Cody Runnels, his real name. Something that can be interpreted as a way of proudly claiming the fact that he is the son of Dusty Rhodes, unless he simply thought it sounded better. When he was young, he had 2 favorite superstars, the Heartbreak Kid, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, who he'll have the opportunity to face in the ring years later, and the Icon, the Vigilante, Sting. Besides, one day, Dusty will make him prank the other wrestlers in the locker room while he was still very young. He would give him, for example, a pen that explodes when you remove the cap. He told him once to go ask Sting for an autograph. Removing the cap, the pen exploded. Sting jumped and Cody ran away. That's a special way to have your first contact with one of your idols. At the age of 12, Dusty allows Cody to get into the ring and personally trains him with body slams, chops, and hip tosses. He also used to show him his old matches with Abdullah the Butcher and also TLC matches, basically the ones where they went everywhere in the arena. Cody will learn at his father's school, and at the age of 15, he will even referee matches at the Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling promotion that his father created. One day, he was going to eat waffles with his father when a guy told them that wrestling was fake. Without any hesitation, Dusty hit him and got arrested. With a story like that, we can imagine how seriously wrestling was taken in the Rhodes family. Cody will more or less imitate him by fighting several times at school with other kids who told him that what his father was doing was fake. He says that his father once told him, "If somebody tells you wrestling is fake, you tell them, no, it's not. If somebody tells you wrestling is fake again, you say, look, that's how my dad makes a living, and you can have your opinion, but don't say it again. On the 3rd time, you have my permission to punch them in the face." As we can see, the wrestling industry has been running through his veins since he was very young. His father clearly has a huge influence on him. He's his hero, and rightfully so because he's a legend. But on the other hand, we can wonder if it will not be a burden for him after a while, since he will inevitably be compared to his dad, and people will expect more from him than a normal wrestler. And in all these stories, we can already see a little what will be the whole problem of his life. To manage or not to find himself, to get out of this giant shadow above him, to be more than the son of the American dream. Anyway, the memory that will make an impact on the prodigal son for life takes place when he is 8 years old. He sees a picture of his father holding the WWF belt before it became WWE at Madison Square Garden in 1977. He asks him if he really has already won this title and tells him that he didn't know that he had been champion like Hulk Hogan. But his father, who apparently hid his frustration at that moment, explains to him that on that day he did beat superstar Billy Graham, the champ, but that as it was by count-out, the rules stipulate that he cannot win the title that way, and that this is the title that he has never been able to win, which still haunts him. Cody then makes a promise to his father. One day he will be WWE champion for him, and he will bring him this belt. His first goal in his life was to win this title one day for his father. This event will light a flame in him that will never be extinguished again, including when he officially starts his career in 2006. Do you want to discover the rest of Cody Rhodes' career and in particular know all the details of this famous story around him? Don't worry, you'll know everything by the end of this episode, and his career may surprise you. In 2006, Cody Rhodes started at Ohio Valley Wrestling, the WWE training center in Kentucky, which was still managed at that time by Paul Heyman, the same guy with whom he would have an extraordinary and touching promo 17 years later on Monday Night Raw. There, it is mainly Al Snow who trains him, and it will go pretty well for Cody, since he will be the first wrestler there in history to win the television champion's belt, the tag team championship with Shawn Spears, who he will meet again years later in AEW, and the heavyweight championship, even if he will keep this one for only one day, since Paul Burchill, against whom he had won it, will already take it back from him. At OVW, Cody Rhodes is having a blast. He describes it as an excellent experience, the equivalent in his life of a time at university. But to his surprise, he will only stay there for a year, since he starts on Monday Night Raw on July 2nd, 2007. In hindsight, he will say that he was not ready yet to start, and that he would surely have needed 2 more years there before being thrown in at the deep end. In any case, it was already time for his great adventure in the main roster, and in a very special way. At only 22 years old, he starts alongside Dusty Rhodes in a storyline where Randy Orton will disrespect his father. In the process, Cody will have his first match against his future mentor on July 16th. On that day, in what was nevertheless a very significant event, since it was the first time that the viewers were going to see him in action, Cody made his entrance accompanied by Dusty, and he had a green and yellow outfit. In this style, as well as in his physical appearance, we immediately perceive his young age, a lack of credibility and massiveness, which can obviously be understood, considering that he had not even had 50 matches in his life. It is only logical to feel that there was a big gap between Randy Orton and him, the legend killer having already been on the main roster for 5 years at that time. Orton was also great in his acting and his attempts to intimidate Dusty, who stayed in ringside throughout the whole match. In a 7-minute match, Cody got schooled by a high-level performer, in a confrontation that looked more like a hazing than a physical fight. However, it should be emphasized that Cody did not look stressed or uncomfortable in his performance, that despite his lack of stature, he was a natural in the ring. And besides, about this match, Randy Orton said that Cody was green, but that he felt his heart and his fighting spirit, that he was clearly the son of Dusty Rhodes. The heir to the legend will offer us a missile dropkick from the top rope, but he will not escape Orton's devastating final RKO, which will make him lose. Knowing the rest of his career that we are going to see together, and more particularly Randy's important role in Cody's journey, we can only find it incredibly symbolic that the RKO Master was Cody's first official opponent in the WWE, that it was with him that everything really started, and all under the eyes of his father. Seeing this, we can clearly tell ourselves that Orton would be an ideal opponent with the idea of achieving a big dream for Cody, as if he should finally succeed in beating the man who was largely superior in his debut, and very symbolically prove that he has now reached that level. In any case, on July 23rd, Orton will even punt kick poor Dusty, the day after their match at the Great American Bash. We will note that from the very beginning, even if it was an exceptional platform to start, and that on a personal standpoint, it's beautiful to do all of this with his father, he is nevertheless immediately presented and therefore perceived as the son of the legend Dusty Rhodes. Was that the best way to launch him, by putting this heavy label on him right away? Personally, I think that giving this to a 20-year-old man who is still new to wrestling was too much, even if at least he gets straight to the heart of the matter. With Dustin, he had also inducted their father into the Hall of Fame a few months before, a speech in which Cody showed remarkable ease for his age, and which had already given him a great spotlight, and which is precisely the whole reason why Cody started so early in the WWE main roster. On that day, he had put a lot of pressure on himself because he wanted his speech to be worthy of his father. In his hotel room, he worked, rehearsed, trained, and it paid off because backstage at the Hall of Fame, while he was speaking, Vince McMahon, the big boss of the WWE, and the official Bruce Pritchard were impressed by his performance. Vince was so impressed by the way Cody talked about his father that he wanted to talk to him later that evening. It might seem great, but in reality, it was a kind of poisoned gift to have managed to impress Vince McMahon, because Cody knew that, from now on, they were probably going to call him to the main roster when he wasn't ready yet. And that's what happened, because 3 months after his speech, he was starting in the Red brand. After this first experience with Randy Orton, he will then have several singles matches with Daivari and Shelton Benjamin, but it is with Hardcore Holly, a business veteran with 20 years of career, that he will have the first real notable chapter of his adventure in the main roster. After several matches against each other in the fall of 2007, Cody wins Holly's respect, and they will form a tag team together. On December 10th, during the 15th anniversary of Raw, Cody and Hardcore Holly defeated Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, and they became the new tag team champions. This title will go down in history as the first that Rhodes won in WWE. Holly becomes a mentor for him and takes him to the gym on a regular basis. He will help him to gain muscular mass, and Cody says that he was the first guy to help him build his physique. Despite a reign of 202 days, everything is not going to be great between them, and they will talk less and less to each other. According to Hardcore Holly, Cody had animosity towards him because the fans sang for the veteran, while the purpose of this association was to elevate Cody and put him over. On the other hand, Jim Ross, the greatest commentator of all time, rather thinks that they have simply had enough of each other, and that, deep down, Holly has always wanted to have a singles push. In this period of time, the future executive vice president of AEW will still participate in his first Royal Rumble in 2008, a show that I love personally, that took place at Madison Square Garden, where he will stay in the ring for 23 minutes, and above all, he will live a short scene that made an impact on him. He will hit The Undertaker from behind with all his strength, and while Cody didn't expect it at all, the dead man will take a few bumps for a young wrestler, put him forward while he could very well not do it, given the superstar that he is. It impressed him, and it shows once again the Phenom's class. The fact of the matter is that during the Night of Champions 2008 pay-per-view, Cody Rhodes will betray Hardcore Holly in a well-timed heel turn, since a mystery teammate had been teased to accompany Ted DiBiase Jr., also the son of a legend, the $1 Million Man, in his match against Cody and Holly. And in the end, it was Rhodes himself. At that moment, Cody will be in a role that suits him much more, I think. More arrogant, especially since they have with Ted DiBiase this common point of being second-generation wrestlers. It's a partnership that makes sense, especially since these two young people have ambition. Together, they form the Priceless team, whose theme song is great, by the way. They are going to be tag team champions several times, especially on August 11, 2008 against John Cena and Batista. Well, in reality, it's because these two were in the middle of a rivalry for SummerSlam. This partnership between these two sons of legends will ultimately lead to Cody Rhodes' first big thing in the WWE. Tonight, the legacy is born. This sentence that Randy Orton pronounces on December 8th, 2008 will officially give birth to my favorite clan in history, and which will be a turning point in Cody Rhodes' career, the legacy. In this group, the idea is simple. We bring together several superstars who are all second or even third generation wrestlers under the leadership of one of the absolute main eventers of WWE at that time, the son of Cowboy Bob Orton and Bob Orton Sr., Randy Orton. In August 2008, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase have their championship belts stolen by the Crime Time team, and this event will lead to Orton making fun of them, which will then make the two young superstars want to earn his respect. I found these few weeks before the official creation of the legacy very interesting, since they will try to impress him. At the Unforgiven show, Orton will also punt kick CM Punk backstage and shout to them, "That's impressive!" a segment that made a mark on me. They will try to prove themselves. There will even be the wrestler Manu, son of the Samoan legend Alpha, and Sim Snuka, the son of Superfly Jimmy Snuka, who will apply to join this group. I'm a fan of this idea that young people fight to earn the respect of an already established superstar at that time, since Orton had been WWE champion a few months before and even beat Triple H and John Cena at WrestleMania 24. He will test them all, and in the end, the clan will be a trio composed of Orton, Rhodes, and DiBiase. What's next is a revolution in Cody Rhodes' career, since, thanks to the legacy and Orton's mentoring, he will be one of the last 3 participants in the 2009 Royal Rumble and help Randy win it. Have an important role in the extraordinary feud between his leader and Triple H for WrestleMania 25. Help him regain the supreme title of the Federation, participate in the incredible rivalry between Orton and Cena. Then, at SummerSlam, Breaking Point, where he will even make Shawn Michaels tap out on a figure 4 leg lock on the pole with the help of DiBiase as well, and Hell in a Cell 2009 have memorable matches against D-Generation X. An exceptional memory for Cody, who found himself facing one of the heroes of his childhood and who will tell how he was amazed in the ring by the absolute excellence of the Heartbreak Kid. Hunter and Shawn will take the time to educate him on a lot of tricks in the ring. He was able to take full advantage of their wisdom. The match that the Legacy had against D-Generation X at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in the cage on October 4th, 2009 is particularly memorable. First of all, it's the main event of the show, while on the card there was also an Undertaker against CM Punk and especially a John Cena against Randy Orton. Clearly, this symbolizes the progression and the rise of Cody Rhodes for 2 years, since he even finds himself propelled in the last match of a pay-per-view, which is usually for the most important stars of the company. This was simply his first pay-per-view main event of his whole career, although it was obviously a tag team match. Already, what I found excellent in this confrontation is that it started intensely, since in the middle of DX's entrance, Rhodes and DiBiase arrived at full speed to attack them from behind. And what we can immediately see if we compare this match to the one that Cody had against Randy Orton in the summer of 2007, for example, is how much Dusty Rhodes' son is more believable, exudes more confidence, which shows that alongside Orton, he has improved. I must also say that with the black outfit, we can take him much more seriously than with the more exotic outfit he had at the very beginning of his career. This match was really epic, and it was very original that a Hell in a Cell match starts with a ringside sequence and then in the crowd. It's still amazing to see Cody fight Shawn Michaels, one of his 2 favorite wrestlers, and we can only imagine how happy he must have been to be in the spotlight alongside one of his idols. What's also memorable in this real war is that the 2 companions of the Legacy will put Triple H out of harm's way on the stage, with Cody giving him his devastating Crossroads finisher on the steel. And you will see that when you will discover the rest of his journey, it's really a mind-blowing symbol to see him destroy the Cerebral Assassin. While the ladder was out, they're going to lock Shawn Michaels in the cage with them, which was really very original. In this match, I see a more energetic Cody. He seems fully invested in it, and I take the chance to say that he's better as a heel, according to me. We will then see Triple H looking for a way to be able to come into the cage to save HBK, who will get a figure 4 leg lock from Cody on the pole, the same move which Rhodes had used to make Michaels tap out. In the end, the game will come back a little later and finally manage to get back into the cage. And what is once again very well found is that in the final sequence of this match, it's Cody who will be locked in the cage with DX. This time, the roles were reversed. He will suffer a big elbow drop from HBK while being in a chair. In the end, he will take a sweet chin music combined with a sledgehammer to collapse for good and let his opponents win. But despite this defeat, Cody had a very important spot since he was directly involved in the entire finish of the main event of a pay-per-view, and with 2 giants of the business. For the record, at that time, Cody was the victim of a prank by DX. While they were going to have a match in a house show in Dublin, Ireland, Triple H told the members of the Legacy that there was going to be a banner with the D-Generation X logo in one place, and that it would be excellent for them as heels to put it away. Except that what Cody didn't know was that when he tried to put it away, a wooden plank that held the banner was going to fall on his head, and paint was going to be spilled on him. While he expected to look like a heel who doesn't respect DX, he found himself embarrassed. And that's not the only time that Dusty Rhodes' son has been pranked. At that time, Randy Orton had fun stealing his clothes while they were at a tanning salon in Alabama, and had even taken a nude photo of Cody with his cell phone, even if he ended up deleting it after his friend complained. In any case, throughout this period, in contact with all these superstars, Cody will learn a lot, and in particular from the one who will become one of his best friends, despite his sometimes special humor, who is 5 years older than him and whose grandfather and father already faced Dusty Rhodes in the 70s at the National Wrestling Alliance, Randy Orton. Long before the foundation of the Legacy and when he was a few days away from starting on television in 2007, Cody says that on his birthday, June 13th, Orton came to him without even really knowing him to take him to celebrate it in a strip club. At that time, Dusty's son is already a fan of his and is shocked by this invitation, even if the circumstances are a little absurd. A few hours before, in a dark match, he had his forehead cut open and had several stitches put in. While they are in the car on their way to the club, at that moment, Orton tells him that some air is good for the stitches and that he should open the window and put his head out, which his new friend is going to do, and then all of a sudden, all his stitches explode on contact with the air, and poor Cody won't stop bleeding all evening. Orton-style humor. They will arrive at the club. Cody tells that Randy will park in a reserved spot and then manage to make the security guard believe that he knows the boss. He will even pretend to do a F5, the famous finisher of Brock Lesnar, to a stripper. What is beautiful at that time between them is that on the one hand, Orton was a hero for Cody and taught him a lot about everything. And on the other hand, the superstar from St. Louis says that it was Cody who drove him everywhere. That Cody was like a babysitter for him, and that without him to get him safely from city to city for 3 years, he might not even be here today given how he was doing those years. Besides, Rhodes says that doing these trips, Randy always puts the air conditioning and the radio with the Hard Rock show to the max to sleep. And that Cody at these times was very cold, but that even if he even turned down the music a little bit, Orton would wake up grumbling, turn up the sound, and go back to sleep right away. Sometime before, the first contact between the two men had also been legendary. While they are on tour in South Africa, Cody goes to the hotel bathroom, and then he comes across Orton, who is holding one of the urinals in his hands, and who says to him, "Hey Code, look at this," then tear it completely off the wall. While water is leaking everywhere, Orton is laughing. And the next day at a meeting, the officials wanted to know who did it, and at that moment, Randy will go in front of everybody and say, "Hey, I want to know who did it." And one day in a restaurant, Cody had again witnessed an incredible scene with Randy. The latter had gone crazy because the oatmeal he was served did not please him. He had then thrown the container with the oatmeal in the restaurant, got up and left. On another occasion, he had even forced a girl who had come to him to ask for an autograph to spill a plate of mushrooms on her head if she wanted him to offer her this privilege. And the crazy thing is that despite the fact that Cody is 5 years younger than Randy, he was the adult and who Vince McMahon sent messages to when he wanted to talk to the Legacy faction. Cody himself says that before becoming friends, he had heard about Orton's reputation of a troublemaker, but that with him and Ted DiBiase, he always took his leadership role very much to heart. When Randy felt that he had something to teach them, he didn't hesitate to get in their face and to be very tough, especially with Ted, as he felt close to them, especially by this common point they had of having grown up in the business with absent fathers. He wasn't afraid to be honest with them, to make them improve, even if it meant offending or hurting them. Ted says that Orton wanted them to succeed, motivated them, always made remarks to them about everything, that even in the ring he got angry asking them why they did this or that. By his side, Rhodes watches and learns, grateful to have such an example in front of his eyes, and who in addition really helps him to improve, a real mentor in the ring and outside. As Cody says in a promo, "It wasn't Dusty Rhodes who made me a main eventer, it was Randy Orton." For Cody, it was also great to live from the inside all of Randy's success. He says that when he saw him pointing at the WrestleMania sign after winning the 2009 Royal Rumble, he wanted to live it too, and became addicted to success. It became like a drug. And yet, this superb clan will eventually dissolve on the screen, culminating in what is nevertheless Cody Rhodes' first real match at the grandest stage of them all. A triple threat between Orton, who is now increasingly popular with fans and on his way to becoming a babyface of the company, Ted DiBiase, and him. In this match at WrestleMania 26, Cody had brown trucks and white boots, and he was physically sharp and tanned, although we could find that he wasn't tall enough and that he may not have the build of a superstar in front of which fans can be amazed. He is, for example, 4 inches shorter than his mentor Randy Orton. He may not be larger than life enough, and his appearance lacks identity in my opinion. Tattoos would be great, for example. Nevertheless, it was still a great achievement to be in one of the flagship matches of the most important show of the year. When we watch this match, it looks more like a 2 against 1, with the two young hyenas Rhodes and DiBiase who want to weaken the lion Orton. At that moment in his career, seeing him in action against his mentor, I must admit that personally, I do not see him having the stature and build to take over from him. And in the end, there will still be a lot of tensions between Ted and Cody, but they will get a double DDT from Orton, who will conclude everything with a punt kick on Rhodes and then an RKO on DiBiase. In the end, Cody will have been mainly there to put Orton over. With hindsight, he will say that he was happy to be able to do it for his friend, who will therefore win this match, because it is thanks to him that he had all this exposure, but that the legacy could and should have continued for another year. That's what I think too. In my opinion, Orton is perfect as a heel, and I think it was a mistake to make him turn face. And then, given the upcoming departures at that time of Shawn Michaels and Batista in 2010 and of Edge in 2011, WWE would have had every reason to keep a strong, believable faction, which elevates each of its members to the top for as long as possible. Personally, I would have rather kept the group, possibly trying to refresh it with 1 or 2 new members, for example, who would also have been sons of legends, with maybe power struggles between Cody and Orton after a while, and a final rivalry between the two that would have raised Rhodes for good as a real potential champion. But the time that it lasted, we'll say between the end of 2008 and the end of 2009, the legacy was great. And the following years, Cody Rhodes' career will no longer reach the same heights for a while. In the next episode, you will discover, among other things, how Cody reinvented himself by being inspired by the movie American Psycho, how WWE didn't want to set up his dream match at WrestleMania 31, and how he lived in every detail the final hours of Dusty Rhodes before his death, but also how an exchange with a rider whom he almost hit encouraged him to leave Vince McMahon's company. All the behind-the-scenes secrets of the creation of the American Nightmare character, and even how a simple tweet from journalist Dave Meltzer led to the creation of WWE's biggest rival in years. And you will never guess the almost supernatural interaction he had with Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2017, or why he hated Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins years before he met them in the ring. In any case, in this episode, we were able to see how Cody Rhodes was born into one of the royal families of wrestling, how he finally got into the business after trying his luck in Hollywood. Then he was propelled into the main roster at Monday Night Raw while he was still very young. But we saw how he was able to benefit from the valuable, although sometimes chaotic mentoring of Randy Orton by being part of the legacy. And after diving into all of this, I have a debate for you. Is Cody Rhodes, in your opinion, better as a heel or as a babyface? As an arrogant villain or as a hero that we want to support? We invite you to come and give your opinion. It will be interesting to talk about it together in the comments and to share our points of view. We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?